Is your family tree a mystery? Are you fascinated by genealogy? Well, hip hip hooray, let's talk DNA with Julie.
The truth is in your genes.
In CutOff Genes.
Welcome to CutOff Genes, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA and elevates the voices of adoptees who are woefully misrepresented in the public narrative of adoption. I'm Julie Dixon Jackson. I am a domestic infant adoptee as well as a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Gen Genie.
And I am Renee Colvert, the co-host / perma-guest, representing the village idiot of the show. Thrilled to be here. Hi,
Perma-guest.
Julie.
Perma-guest.
Perma-guest. Well,
like
just in
that one.
case you find a better co-host, I wanted to give a wiggle in. You understand.
Sake. How are you?
I'm good. Happy birthday
Oh.
to you. Listeners,
Hey,
Julie's birthday was on
thanks.
Sunday.
It was
Sunday.
on Sunday. It was on
How
Sunday.
was it? Did we get cake? Did we get presents? Walk me through the day.
We did not get cake. We got Krispy Kreme donuts.
Okay, I can allow it.
So my boss, I have the best boss in the world,
Yeah.
the best manager where I work. She came in on her day off and delivered Krispy Kreme donuts and flowers for my
That is the
station.
best boss in the world.
It's the
That's
best boss in the
incredible.
world. Yes, it was
Love
very
it.
nice. So I did that, and then after work, I went. My family. We went to dinner. We had a dual birthday dinner because it was Lily's birthday on Saturday.
Yes,
as-
little Lily
as-
bug.
Yes, most of us know. But yeah, so I worked on my birthday, and which doesn't bother me at all because I think everybody knows that I don't particularly enjoy my birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you knew that was going to be my follow-up question. Did you want to work? And then as someone who is a self-proclaimed narcissist, what does that look like when you're not
No,
like
well,
me?
so when I saw that I was working, at first I was like, don't they know I'm working? Then I was like, oh, who cares? Because I
Okay.
don't, I have I low key don't like people that are like, it's my birthday month, and
Sure.
the entire month is about their birthday. I'm like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
But hey, whatever, to each his own. That's just
Sure,
my
fair.
humble opinion.
No,
But
you're not wrong.
yeah, I don't like my birthday just because it's never been a big deal. I talk about this every year. It's never been a big
Okay.
deal in my family. My mother actually said that she thought of my birthday really as June 3rd, not April 7th, because that's the day they brought me home. So I didn't
That's
exist
tough.
before that, apparently.
That's tough. Okay.
Yeah. So, but because my boss had written happy birthday on my mirror and there were flowers, so everyone that sat in my chair knew that it was my birthday.
Yeah.
And wanted to talk about it. And I had a varying, so I had a lot of people. It was a really
Yeah.
busy day.
Yeah.
And I kind of tried a different tactic with each customer.
Let's hear these tactics.
Okay, so like one time I was like, oh, they were like, oh, it's your birthday. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, it's my birthday. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
And, I actually don't like my birthday. So, it's not a big deal. And of course, their follow-up is, may I ask why?
There you go. I like that they were polite about it. I like that they asked
Yes.
for permission to ask.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And I could have said, no, you may not. But I wouldn't have gotten a tip at that point. But,
Right. I think you would have, but yes, it
yes.
would have been,
Okay.
there would have been a bit of silence. Yes.
Yes. So I told people, and it's a tough conversation to start.
Yeah.
It's hard for the layman to hear. Well, the day I was born was when the first trauma happened in my life.
Yeah. Of course.
And
Yeah.
I'm very aware of that. And so I told this one gentleman, I told him the story, and you find that you have to really dig into things about, because
Right.
then you have to go into the whole story and all that, and you don't want to say my parents weren't terrible people, but of course they assume that is what I
Sure.
mean.
Sure.
So I have to qualify everything.
Yep. Yeah.
But inevitably they will say, well, look at you now, you really got through it.
Yeah. Yeah, and listen, I am so part of the problem with that of just like, how do
You're
I
a very
make this better
positive
for you?
individual. I know. And most
Yeah,
people do that. I think it's a natural inclination for somebody
sure.
to kind of say something that looks at
Lean
that
in.
shows you the silver lining.
Yeah,
But I don't need that. And I would just rather them say, well, yeah, that sucks. That really gave me something to think about. And some
yeah,
people do react like that.
yeah.
Uh, and so yeah, it was interesting, and I got through it. And of course, my family, my husband and children, will celebrate me, and I love that because they're
Love it.
genuinely celebrating me.
Yes,
And
yes.
then of course, my brother Rob Fisher, the greatest brother in the world, ugh, he outdid himself this year. For
Oh,
heaven's sake, Rob.
what'd he do?
Well,
Sweet boy.
he sends me flowers every year on my birthday. And then yesterday I got another care package from him of like some of my favorite Aussie snacks.
Come on.
Um
I like this
and
guy.
some Australiana. But he just goes there, and it's so funny because I can intellectualize that I deserve this,
Yes.
but there's still the little girl in me that is like, "Oh, stop it. You're spoiling me. I don't deserve this. I don't, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's
Definitely.
it's
No,
it's hard to take, and it makes me feel guilty. I feel guilt for when
Julie.
people are kind to me.
Okay. I don't love that this was conditioned into you. I probably have a little bit of that myself, but
Yeah, a
you of
lot of
all
us do.
people, definitely deserve to be celebrated. But I guess I'm going to come up with terrible metaphors here, but
All
yeah,
right, here we go.
if you're not an adoptee and but you do understand the concept of trauma, this is
Mm,
terrible and I'm so sorry and feel free to
mhm.
cut this, but it would be like doing a little on 9/11 every year. And she's like, I know. It was dark. It was a tough time too.
Okay,
There were
for
bad things
people who
too.
aren't looking at the video, Renee just made a motion like she was smoking a doobie.
Yeah, a birthday horn and a doobie at the same time. I
Oh
would like
wait,
for them to come
wait,
up.
it wasn't a doobie. It was a
It was,
blowing
yeah. It
tooting
was
a
a
horn.
yeah. Listen, we would
I
not win at
I thought you
charades.
were smoking weed. Okay, the birthday horn makes much more
Okay.
sense in
Okay.
this
Fair, fair,
metaphor.
fair. You get it. You understand. You understand. Of course. Of course. Of course. Uh,
Yes.
but I
Yes,
can see how it's conflicting. Yeah.
it's conflicting. It is
Okay.
conflicting. I need to get better about it, and I need to just say thank you and move on.
Well,
I'm aware of that because I guess maybe it's just, speaking of narcissism, maybe it's narcissistic of me to make, I don't know. I don't
no.
know.
I think
I
it's
don't know
okay
what.
to hold both. I think it's okay to hold both
Yes,
and
but
to
maybe
understand.
not lean into it so much. It's very hard for me, and I think the listeners know this. It's very hard for me not to blurt out whatever is on my mind.
Which I love, which I love. But I have to say,
It
Julie,
gets me in trouble a lot. A lot.
but and forgive me if you're just like, no, Renee, you've assessed this in incorrectly. But I don't know that I've seen you process this, our entire friendship. The processing of what actually has happened and why you're feeling the way that you're feeling seems newer to me. And so
Well,
I think it would
yes,
make sense
absolutely.
for it to
I
be a
was
little
in a
more
different
intense right now.
place I was when we first started recording the podcast
Yeah.
5 years ago. I was fresh. So I came out of the fog after when I had Lily, I think.
Yeah.
Low key
Yeah.
came out of the fog.
Yep.
And with what happened after my father died, or when my father was sick and after he died, and then the resulting legal battle,
Right.
that is what left me shell shocked and uh, with fresh trauma and way out of the fog.
Yeah.
And so these past few years have been processing that.
Yeah.
And the more adoptees that I talk to, the more I hear people trying to sugarcoat the realities of adoption. And the more that, because of the way that the whole trial was handled, having to do with me being a bad adoptee and my brother being a good adoptee,
Insane.
it really, it kind of lit a fire under me and made me realize that I have to get in this fight. I have to help to raise our voices and help for people to understand that it's not as it seems,
Yeah.
and a lot of things need to change.
I love this. I love all of
Yeah.
this. And yeah. So, and again, forgive me if you're like, no, you're assessing this wrong, but from an outsider's point of view, it seems like you were processing this much like a grief. So you're going through all the stages. And I think
Mhm.
right now is anger. And I think you're allowed to be angry for a while. And then,
The
it'll
anger
ebb and
has been
flow.
in and out. I mean,
Yeah.
I've definitely been angry for the past 6 years, but
Sure.
um but yes, and I go through stages where, and we talked about this last week, where I was kind of newly triggered because of
Yeah.
that conversation I
Yeah.
had with my aunt.
Yeah.
So I was kind of freshly angry, and plus there are things happening uh with the probate on my father's estate that is, so it's very at the front of my
And
mind, but
right.
everything is fine. Everything is great.
Everything doesn't have to be fine, but I do think you're doing a good job at sort of holding both things. Is it a type of thing where do you want to give listeners updates on what's going on, or
No,
you
I've
can't quite?
actually not shared the entire story with the listeners. I've shared
Okay.
some of it on the Patreon. If you guys want to hear some of the stuff that I've talked about involving the case, join the Patreon. It's patreon.com/cutoffjeans podcast.
There you go. Okay.
And you can join for as little as $5 a month. So there
Okay.
you go.
I will.
And there's also bonus things on there.
What kind of bonus things are we talking?
Well, everybody gets the podcast a day early, and thinking, I guess I need to check with you. I'm thinking of maybe editing it when I edit the podcast. Also edit the video and leave the
Yeah.
video on for the Patreon,
Great.
so that
I
people
love that.
can watch us doing this.
That's amazing.
Because I think I can do that.
Need to
And then
edit the
also I
video.
do like outtakes and snippets and outtakes from my interviews and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun.
and sometimes I put blog posts in there, and just sometimes something that has nothing to do with anything other than I wanted to make people laugh. So
I love this. I love
there
this.
you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Listen,
I would
thank you
like to
for
know
that.
what your experience with the solar eclipse was yesterday.
Yes, I love it. Love it. Didn't give a gander. Didn't I was
Me neither.
I was working from a outdoor coffee shop, and we saw people with glasses look up. But it was with my friend Amanda, and then we both got scared. We're just like, we're gonna go blind. But I
Yeah,
did
I didn't have any
watch.
glasses, and so I didn't want to get tempted, so I
Didn't
pretended it wasn't happening.
didn't. Yeah, yeah. In general, can I run this by? I think you of all people would understand why I think
Mhm.
it would be amazing. So you know how theater will transport you and make you feel closer to God than you've ever felt ever, even if you don't quite believe in
Yes,
God? Because
absolutely.
for me, it's like, oh, it's this group of people all feeling the same thing at the highest emotion at once.
Yes.
Nothing more powerful. I feel
Yes.
like if I were to see a total eclipse with a bunch of people, it would have that theater effect of we're
Well,
all feeling the same thing at
yes,
once. And
and
I
I
think that's
watched
what
it.
would
I
be
actually
amazing.
watched it on TV, like all the
Oh,
places where
wow.
they did it, and people were
Yeah.
so emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost a little much at times. I'm like, simmer down, simmer
Fair.
down.
Fair,
It's
fair,
just
all
the
right.
moon
Take her
going in
easy.
front of the sun.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree with you. I think it's an incredible phenomenon. But the main reason I didn't feel like I was missing out was because I have actually experienced a total eclipse before.
What? Where? When? Why? And how? Tell me
When
everything.
I was 11 years old, there was a total eclipse in Melbourne, Australia.
Come on.
So
Yeah, what was that experience?
it's so funny because I so clearly remember a few weeks before it was happening, I overheard, I was maybe eavesdropping, my teacher talking to a bunch of the other teachers, and I heard somebody say, well, if we tell them not to look, they'll look.
Yeah. That's a smart
And I
teacher.
was like,
Yes.
what are they talking about? This sounds fascinating.
Yes.
And then found out later that what it was about. And of course, there was like this, we didn't have the special glasses back then.
Right.
And so they did, you can still do the shoebox thing with a mirror, I think.
Yeah, sounds
where you
right.
can look at the mirror, like look through it. I don't know.
Something.
Y'all know what I'm
Okay.
talking about.
Yes.
But so on the actual day, apparently, if I recall correctly, they either canceled school or it was after school. If
Oh,
they
wow.
canceled school, it's because they didn't want to be responsible for
Sure.
the kids who looked at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, let's
That's fair.
wash our
Not on
hands
my
of
watch.
this possibility. Yeah.
Good.
So I remember standing with my family on our back patio, and we had our house was surrounded by trees,
Right.
and it just went completely black
Wow.
for 3 or so minutes.
Wow.
And the most significant thing I remember about it is when it got light again, the birds started singing.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so cool.
The best. That's what I hear is the most amazing thing about it, is that like nature itself is echoing back to you like, this is exceptional. This is
Yes.
very, very cool. I hear dogs go crazy, birds go crazy. They're just like, this is crazy.
Yes. Yes.
I love it.
And can you imagine, like, it kind of before science and before
Yeah.
people knew what these things were, you know that there were total eclipses.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And can you imagine the people during medieval times if it just suddenly gets dark for 3 minutes? They're freaking out.
Had to be. Had
The-
to be.
And, I'm sure they thought it was a sign from God or,
Yes.
you know.
How could you not? Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
what fascinates me is the amount of people, and I only know this because I'm on the internet,
Yeah.
but the amount of people who were saying that it was the rapture.
Sure. Every time. Every time.
And everything, just
Yeah.
it's amazing to me, the people that will lean into that.
Yeah.
That they're like, this is it now. This natural occurring phenomenon is actually the raptor.
This time it's
the
gonna
raptor,
take.
the velociraptor, the rapture.
Yeah.
I mean, did they think that, like, in 2017 was the last one we had, when
I think
when
every time we have
the
one,
leader
they're
of the
just
free
like,
world walked out of the White House and looked right at it.
sweet baby.
That was my favorite. But yeah, and you know what?
Yeah.
Actually, I looked it up.
Yeah. What do we got?
This whole rapture thing, because
Why are people
did you
doing
know
that?
that the rapture is actually never mentioned in the Bible?
No, I didn't.
It was
Huh.
actually invented in the early 19th century.
Oh boy.
So this guy who invented it was John Nelson Darby. He
Okay.
invented the false doctrine of the rapture, 1830 to 1833 AD, and popularized it in 1850, in which it infected us today.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I think he came up with this idea, and I think maybe a lot of people within certain churches saw it as a way to get more people to come to their way of thinking, and so they could control them. I'm sorry, Christians. I'm not dissing all Christians, but
No.
you got to admit some of this is crazy. So it stuck, and it's still there. Let's get into the subject at hand, shall we? All right.
Yes,
'Cause, yeah,
please.
this podcast is about genetic genealogy. Here's have you heard this story? I think it started making the rounds about a year ago. Um, Last year, it was disclosed that Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey may be half brothers.
Yes. But I
Yeah.
think that's as
Yeah,
far
so
as
I
I
had
know
to
with
look
this,
into
just
it a
that
little
headline.
more,
Keep
of
going.
course. And they work together a lot in True Detective. They're friends. They vacation together.
Yeah.
But so here's how it all came about. Apparently, during a family vacation to Greece, in which Woody was also a guest, McConaughey's mother made a loaded statement. So during an interview, McConaughey
Oh.
said, in Greece a few years ago, we're sitting around talking about how close we are in our families, and my mom is there, and she says, Woody, I knew your dad. ... Everyone was aware of the ellipsis that my mom left after knew. It was a loaded KNEW. McConaughey, I don't know why they didn't question her further at that point. McConaughey said his mother's remark moved him to investigate his family history and whether she might have had a fling with Harrelson's father, in which McConaughey was conceived. We went on to unpack what this new meant, he said, and did some math and found out that Harrelson's dad was on furlough at the same time that my mom and dad were in their second divorce. Then there's possible receipts in places out in West Texas where there might have been a gathering or a meeting or a new moment. McConaughey was estranged from his mother, Mary Kathleen McCabe. Shocking. For several years, the man he has believed is his father his whole life, James, died in 1992.
Okay. What's the age difference between
I
McConaughey
don't know
and...
exactly. I think it's about 10 years, though. I think I
Okay.
think Harrelson's dad was like some sort of criminal. Yeah, I believe.
Oh,
I read.
oh
I didn't.
boy.
It's not
Okay.
here.
I just feel like tantalizing and exciting right up until the point of just like, but wouldn't you guys live together?
Well,
Wouldn't
he's
that
a
have just been like, oh,
secret
this is
brother.
my brother,
No, well,
and they
okay.
would have known?
So it sounds like she's saying
Oh, I see, I see, I see.
an
Okay.
event that like a one-time thing that happened,
Okay.
and she got pregnant and then got back together with McConaughey's dad, or the man who thought he was his dad.
Right. But
So Harrelson has said he wants to
okay.
take a DNA test to find out if the two are actually related. He told Stephen Colbert, "We want to go and test, but for
Okay.
him, it's a much more big deal." No kidding. I mean, he feels like he's losing a father, but I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you're gaining a father and a brother. Thanks, Woody. Way to sugarcoat that, Woody, and
Okay. Okay.
not yeah.
Okay. Okay. I mean, yeah, I think celebrities know what they're doing. Their press people know what they're
Mm.
doing. Their publishers know what they're doing. So I definitely want to sort of be like, okay, what are you guys actually doing here? But that would be, how do you feel about that? If they were brothers, how would you
I
feel?
would. Here's the thing. I do not understand. I know there are people
Yeah.
more often men than women will sweep something under the rug and just not want to know the answer. In my experience, I mean, I would
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
3/4 of the people that
Always.
I've helped are women and a quarter are men. Yeah. They
Yeah.
don't want to know. They
Yeah.
would
They
just
don't want to know.
rather
They don't want to know. They don't
exactly.
want to feel
It's
things that
feeling
they
is
don't want to
hard.
feel. Yeah.
I get it. They're
It
correct.
is.
Yes.
In their defense,
Yes.
it is. It's very difficult. Okay, well, yeah. Listen,
Mhm.
you have my attention,
I will.
fellas. Keep
I
me
don't know
posted
if they're ever I
how
mean, they
that all
wouldn't
shakes out.
do a
Okay.
public DNA test. They would probably I mean, they can just go and take a like a lab test. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's interesting
Okay.
though.
All right.
And it
Well,
could also, like you said, it could be like a publicist thing, like, you guys look so alike. Let's make people think that maybe you're actually
right.
brothers. Woody Harrelson's dad, who worked as a hitman for a Texas drug lord.
Oh boy. Okay.
Oh my
All
gosh, he
right.
looks just like him. When Woody Harrelson was a kid, his father was just a normal dad, but by the time Woody was an adult, Charles Harrelson was a twice incarcerated hitman.
Oh boy. Okay.
Okay. So he
Okay.
disappeared from Woody's life in 1968 when the future actor was just 7 years old. Afterward, Harrelson received a 15-year sentence for killing a Texas grain dealer.
Oops.
Somehow he got out early for good behavior.
Okay.
Really?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so that's his dad.
Got it.
Now let's see. His mom. I can't. It doesn't mention who Woody's mother was.
Okay.
Actually,
Interesting.
it says parents Charles Harrelson, father, but it doesn't mention who his mother is. That's weird.
Interesting.
I'm gonna have to look into that later, but let's
Okay.
move on.
I love it.
Anyway.
Well, listen, we're following the saga and I am finally caught up. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. So Matthew McConaughey's mom maybe cheated on her husband with Woody Harrelson's dad.
Correct.
Got it. I'm in.
Correct.
I'm in. I'm
Holy-
ready. And
holy
so both
cow.
of them have a criminal father.
Yes,
Allegedly.
they share a
Okay.
father. Just
Right.
like me and my brother, the best brother in the world, Rob Fisher, share a father.
The best. The best. Okay. I love it.
best.
I love it.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Okay, let's take a break. If you're enjoying CutOff Jeans, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. So I had a conversation with author Monica Hall the other day. She's also an adoptee. And she mentioned that she had been asked to speak at the hearing for SB 1274 in Sacramento, which is
Okay.
actually happening tomorrow, April 10th. I guess
Okay.
it's the initial hearing. I think there's a few steps that have to go through. But she mentioned she has been asked to speak because she is a biological mother as well as an adoptee.
Gotcha.
So she knows
Okay.
of what she speaks. I have it in the Facebook group. There's a series of links that you can go if you want to support it or just read about it. But I'm just going to tell y'all about it right now. A hearing on SB 1274 has been set for Wednesday, April 10th. I know that is in the past when you hear this in the Senate Health Committee. It is scheduled to begin at 1:30. Here's the basic info. This is the first hearing on the bill, and it will be heard in the Health Committee. In general, the committee covers issues relating to public health, including vital records. The focus of SB 1274 in the committee will be on the bill's direct connection to vital records, which is overseen by the California Department of Health, while arguments will no doubt come up about privacy, as they always do, and the California state constitution. Those arguments are generally outside the scope of this committee. You can actually register your position. I think you have to be a California resident, but if you're a California adoptee or an adoptee who lives in California, there is a portal you can go to called the California Position Letter Portal. I will put a link on it on the Facebook group to go in there. And there's also a sample of just what to say to keep it short and say how it relates to you and what your experience is. An example, and I basically lifted this example, only I changed the name to me. As an adoptee, I request a do pass recommendation on SB 1274. This bill would do one simple thing: restore the rights of all California born adopted people to get a single document that has always been theirs, their own original birth records. Nothing more, nothing less. The bill is important to me and my family. Please support SB 1274 with a do pass recommendation. There's also a list of people on the committee that you can reach out to independently if you like. But, it was authored by Senator Susan Talamantes Eggman. I believe she's an adoptee as well. But yeah, so guys, it's happening, and I'm sure there'll be several hearings after it. But if you would like to have your voice heard and support the voices of adoptees to have the right to their own birth certificate, please do so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. That's why is that not already in
It's not
place?
a thing in most states.
Good Lord in heaven. Okay.
It's crazy that this, as evolved as this country is, that's still not a thing. I want to thank listener Carolyn Curdy for sending me this next story that I think is really timely and fascinating. I think you will agree. The headline is: He donated his sperm to friends. Now he wants to be dad to the 5-year-old.
Yikes.
A sperm donor's paternity case could have statewide ramifications for same-sex couples and other families who rely on assisted reproduction. This is from March 28th, 2024. So this couple, this lesbian couple, Juliana and Catherine Sheridan, several years ago decided they wanted to start a family. Chris Edrington was a friend of theirs, and he kept rising to the top of the list of men who could potentially help. So one night in 2017, the St. Paul couple invited him out for Mexican food and popped the question. Excited for the couple, Edrington said yes. But now the girl he helped conceive through artificial insemination is a kindergartner, and Edrington wants to be more than just her family friend and sperm donor. He wants the courts to recognize him as her legal dad.
Oof.
A district court judge denied the Sheridans' request to dismiss his claim to paternity. Now the couple are asking the state court of appeals to reconsider. Ever since they were served with Edrington's lawsuit, the couple have been consumed with worry that their 5-year-old daughter will be uprooted from their family. The case has also rattled LGBTQ plus advocates, state legislators, and family law attorneys who say it could have wide-ranging repercussions, not only for same-sex couples, but other Minnesota families who rely on assisted reproduction.
Terrifying.
Yeah. I know. We have statutes that say a sperm donor is not a parent. Statutes. Did I say statutes? Yeah. We have statutes that say a sperm donor is not a parent, says Erica Holzer, an attorney working for the couple on their appeal. There just hasn't been a case like this. It's because Minnesota law protects families who use assisted reproduction. It protects kids who were conceived by assisted reproduction, and it protects same-sex couples and their families. The difference is, in this particular case, assisted reproduction through a lab is very expensive. And there are other ways to do it without going through that route.
Okay.
And so he donated his sperm to them, but
Yeah.
they manually, let me see.
Turkey
where is it?
basted. Yeah.
Yes, basically
Okay.
that. I don't think it was a
Okay.
turkey baster, although I've
Okay.
heard turkey basters work. So
I hear it's great. Honestly, yeah. There was God, what show? I think it was called Sperm Cast. That she documented that she tried it several times. That it's a legitimate thing. It may not
yeah,
be like an actual turkey, but wow. Okay. Good
they
Lord.
probably got a new one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You would hope. You'd hope.
Hold on. The couple say from that first conversation in which they approached Edrington, all three parties agreed that the Sheridans would be the child's parents. We were very direct. Catherine says the moms would assume all legal rights and decide how to rear their kid. Chris would be Chris to the child, Juliana says. Any father daughter language, that was a hard no for us. I have something to say about that, but I'll come back. Edrington, a straight man in his 50s, agreed to provide the sperm through artificial insemination. Down the road, if the child had questions about her genetic identity, and she will, by the way, she could find answers in Edrington, but the parties never formalized the agreement with any written contracts. Crazy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because you're friends, right?
I know you don't think, but
You would,
no.
yeah.
Edrington seemed like a logical person to lean on. He had officiated their wedding. And had been
Brutal.
friends with one of them for several years, and then both after they got married.
Yeah.
So
God.
so out of the blue, he just decided to legally. I don't know why he would feel the need to legally do this.
So gnarly. Okay, so because they didn't go through an expensive company,
yes, but
that
now they
would've
have to
taken care
because
of
of
the
all their
paperwork.
legal
Yeah,
fees.
okay.
He argued in his paternity action that he already has enjoyed parenting time until it was cut off after he filed the lawsuit. Well, duh.
Yeah, no kidding.
I would too.
Imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The couple have already spent nearly $30,000 in legal fees to keep their family intact.
Definitely do. Okay.
I want to give you my thoughts on this.
Please. Yeah, I would love to hear them.
While I believe that every child has a right to know who both of their parents are, both of their biological parents are. Where I was a little taken aback at first when they said that was a hard no for us when talking about father-daughter language.
Right.
At some point, it needs to be up to the child when the child is old enough as to what she calls him. But I think that was probably implied. It just sounded a little,
probably. Yeah, growing up, we're your parents, but then
yes, I agree that the moms can decide when to tell her who her sperm donor is, but how she feels about her relationship with him throughout the years may change. It should be up to her how she refers to him. However, him filing this lawsuit is essentially shooting himself in the foot because it immediately complicates how this child relates to him when she's an adult. She'll be aware that he made life incredibly stressful for this established family, including her, both financially and emotionally. The whole thing reeks of ownership. He's wrong.
Oof.
This is not child-centered. This is
yes.
It always needs to be child-centered, and this is very clearly him-centered.
Yes. Perfect take. Perfect take. Couldn't agree more.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not child-centered. It's about him. But if in his mind he thinks it's child-centered, you just guaranteed you will never see this kid again.
You shot yourself in the foot. This kid is going to, he has thrown a wrench into the well-being of this family just by, because now if he gets parental rights, that means he will share custody with them. They won't have they won't wake up every Christmas morning together. You know what, and there are siblings too on this intact family. It's a bad take. It's a really bad take, I think.
I'm right there with you. Couldn't agree more. You said it more articulately and
kind of
more
well,
concise.
I wrote it down and I've been thinking
you nailed
about
it.
You know.
Yeah. He's wrong. So God, it's so weird how we get greedy as people. Like you had it all. You had all of it. You had the relationship. You had the thing. You had the experience of parenting.
Yeah.
What are you doing, bro?
And it's much cheaper for him this way too.
Good Lord, yes.
Because if he's gonna have to pay child support now with that, I don't think that he will get it.
I don't think he'll win either.
I don't think, but stranger things have happened. So
it's truly bananas.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. Okay. Let's take another break.
Okay.
Hi, Gen Genies. If you are enjoying Cutoff Genes, why not consider becoming a Patreon subscriber? Patreon is a site where listeners can pledge a small monthly amount, either $5 or $10 or whatever you want, to support the cost of bringing you your favorite podcast. All patrons get early access to new Cutoff Genes episodes before they're released to the public, as well as bonus content, including video outtakes, blog posts, and insider information that is not available to the general public. I love bringing you the Cutoff Genes podcast, and it would mean so much if you would consider supporting this labor of love. Just go to patreon.com/Cutoff Genes podcast. Thanks, guys. All right, we're back, and story time has returned, Renee.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yes. This lovely gentleman is Jim Serrano from Northern California. I have seen him popping up on a lot of in a lot of adoptee spaces, and I knew he had a story to tell, and I wanted to elevate his voice. So we had a conversation. I do have a trigger warning. There is sexual abuse as well as suicidality in this. So just a warning to the listeners who are particularly sensitive to those subjects. But let's have a listen to the first part of my conversation with Jim Serrano. Hi, everybody. I have on the line Jim Serrano. Jim, welcome to Cutoff Genes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
We love stories. We loved hearing
Oh, yeah.
all the different stories because there's so many and no two are alike.
Yeah. Got that right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jim, you are an adoptee.
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us a little bit about your adoption situation?
Okay, so I was born in January 22nd in 1962, and I was born in San Jose, California. I just turned 62 in this January, and matter of fact, the funny part about it is I had to go every time my birthday comes around. I always look at these adoption papers that my adopted parents gave me when I did my search. and and the adoption papers had the name of Freddie on the top, and I always wonder who in the heck is Freddie.
Right.
And then when I started looking, I always look at these papers on my birthday, so I was looking at them, but there was different dates on these papers. I was okay, this is kind of weird. So finally, I got so intrigued by it that I went to the county of Santa Clara adoption agency because that's where I was adopted out of, and I told them my story. So I sat down, and the lady says, "Come on in the office, Jim." So I had to tell the story I'm going to tell you today. I told the story to this lady. So she was so intrigued by it. And I told her that Social Security had me born in 61, but my birth certificate says 62. And so about 3 years ago, I went to Social Security. This is when I start getting papers from Social Security telling me that that it's getting time for you to think about your Social Security, right?
Yeah.
But they had the dates of 61, and I go, wait a minute, why does it say 61? I was born in 62. So I went to the Social Security office, and I showed them my birth certificate. But of course, my birth certificate is not my original birth certificate, right? It's the one that I got a year, 14 months after I was adopted or after I was born. So I showed it to Social Security, and they said, okay, we'll change it. No, we'll change it back to 62 instead of 61 because they had me a year older. So I went to the Santa Clara department, and I said, you know what? This is really bugging me. And you think the judge would open up my records to find out exactly when I was born and who this Freddie is on this piece of paper? So they said it would take like about 6 months for them to open up the records, right? But I guess they liked me so much that they called me about like a month and a half after. And they told me, okay, Jim, we got your information. You were born in 62, and the person of Freddie on that piece of paper, that was you. Because for the first 6 months of your life, I didn't even know where I was. I have no clue where I was. And my parents that adopted me didn't know. Even my biological mother didn't know. So they said that they couldn't name me Baby Doe. So that someone that was taking care of me had to give me the name of Freddie. So whoever was taking care of me in the foster care system, wherever I was for the first 6 months of my life, named me Freddie. So that's who Freddie was. That was me.
Do you know why you were in the foster care system?
Because my biological mother gave me up at birth.
Right. But why did you not go immediately to a home? To somebody's
I
home?
have no idea. This happened in
Interesting.
1962, so it was a long time ago.
And do you know why the
And
date was wrong?
they don't know. They can't
Oh,
answer
maybe it
that.
was just a clerical error.
Maybe, but the judge did open up the records because I guess they said it was easier for them to open up the records because I already found my biological parents
Hmm. Right. Okay.
22 years ago.
Yeah.
So it wasn't for me to go look. I already knew who my parents were, but I had to get the information straight because it kept on bugging me.
Yeah, of course.
So, but the good thing about it is they invited me to educate their employees at the county, Santa Clara County adoption agency. So now I'm like the go-to man for them for any questions, and I'm gonna go speak to their employees. They were trying to make an appointment in a meeting for me
Mhm.
to go tell my story, plus answer any questions for them.
Yeah.
So you never know. You never know what's gonna happen in your life, you know. But that's gonna be happening pretty soon.
Wow. You're the adoptee at large in
Yeah,
Santa
that's
Clara.
what the lady had texted me probably about 3 weeks ago when they called me and I said, "Well, yeah, I would love to do that." And
That's
so
amazing.
you just never know, you know, through certain things in your life that you're gonna be able to help others now. You know, that was my goal. My whole life
Yes.
was to educate non-adoptees or people that want to adopt or birth parents or anybody who wants to listen to me. I'm gonna tell you my story, tell you how my life was like a roller coaster.
Sure, absolutely. So California is a closed state though. So adoptees are not allowed to have their original birth certificates. So how do you handle that? And how does Santa Clara handle that if they're so willing to be open with you and to have you speak for adoptees? What's that like?
You know what? It's a trip because I looked at I have two birth certificates because I have one that they gave my parents, my adopted parents, a year after I was born.
Right. Because they issue new birth certificates after adoptions happen.
Yeah. But then I got another one from 1974, the exact same birth certificate, but it says 1974. But the first one I got has a seal on it, has a stamped seal.
Right.
But the other one doesn't have a stamped seal.
But why did you get it? Why did
I
they just randomly send it to you?
I have no idea. My adopted mom, she passed away 23 years ago, so I have no clue why I have two birth certificates.
Maybe she couldn't find your original, the official one, but
Uh-huh.
needed something to register you for school or something.
That's what my wife was telling me. Maybe, and I used to play a lot of sports, and you used to have your birth certificate when you signed up for sports. So maybe that's why. That's what I was thinking.
Interesting. You
Yeah,
have 3 actually.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that
exactly.
what was it like for you being an adoptee as a child? What
Oh,
are there any significant experiences for you that still stay with you?
oh yeah, it's a
Mhm.
lot. As a child, my adopted parents already had uh, three children of their own. Well, actually, they had four. They had a little boy named Georgie. He was 2 years old. He got sick and he passed away. So when he passed away, I got all these answers from
Mhm.
my sister, their daughter. She's a lot older than me, so I sat her down one day because I always
Yeah.
wanted the facts. I asked her. It goes, "Why did they adopt us?" Because they never sat me down to tell me that I was adopted. All I heard was growing up was them teasing me that they got me at a supermarket.
Hilarious.
That's what I grew up with. And my
Yeah.
sister, they adopted two of us. She
Okay.
was from some other parents, but my dad wanted a boy because I
Mhm.
found out after from my sister to replace
Okay.
Georgie. So I was more of a replacement because my father wasn't very loving. He didn't show me any emotion.
Yeah.
I asked my sister one time, because you think he resented me? And she didn't disagree with me.
Mhm. Well, you know, they probably expected, especially back then, people were of the belief that babies are blank slates and you can
Hmm.
mold them to be the people that you want them to be, and that just quite false.
Exactly, exactly,
We are who we are born to be, and we have pre-verbal experiences and we have built-in personalities and
exactly.
proclivities. So I think that happens a lot for us. Again, when we know we're adopted, we already get the sense that we are there to provide a service and we have a role to play.
Exactly, exactly. And my adopted mother was having a nervous breakdown. So that's why they decided to adopt. So I didn't hear the three words "I love you" till I was never from my father, but from my mother when I was 37 years old. But that's because that's the day I went to ask him for my adoption paper because I was going to go search. So yes, exactly. So that's the first time I heard "I love you." I never heard it from my dad, and me and my wife took care of my dad for like 5 years because the last years of his life he had dementia. So I was the only one. Me and my wife were the only ones who were taking care of him because my other siblings were lived out of town where he lived. So I was the only one left. So I took care of my dad. We both worked at the same place, same company. We both there for 30 years. We both retired with Teamster pensions. But growing up, like I said, I never felt any compassion, any love. My dad was really hard on me. Uh, Physically abuse, yes. Mental abuse, yes. Um, 10 years ago, when I was 52, on the way to get an ice cream, me and my wife and daughter, my wife's a school teacher. So
Mhm.
she does a lot of stuff on child sexual abuse and stuff like that, the signs to look for, right? So we were listening to this thing on the radio, and finally that day, I were in the parking lot. I said, "Okay, Jim, it's time." So I had to admit to my daughter and my wife that I was being sexually molested from the ages from 9 to 11 by a male cousin that was in his
Oh,
early 20s. So
oh,
I held that inside of me till I was 52 years old. This has happened when I was
oh,
between 9 and
wow.
11, and he
Yeah.
was a male, so you could see how how much even harder it
Yes,
was a
it's
male.
trauma and shame combined
Yes,
and confusion and oh, I'm so sorry.
it's okay. So see, my parents that raised me, they didn't know anything about it because they already had passed away.
Mm,
I didn't admit
mhm.
it till I was 52 years old, 10
Of
years ago.
course. Yeah.
So they didn't know who it was. But people always ask me, when was the hardest cry you've ever had? And I always tell everybody the hardest cry I've ever had was at my adopted mom's gravesite when we were burying her, and I was a pallbearer, right? So it's
Mhm.
when I took the corsage or the flower off me and I put it on top of the casket.
Mm.
Well, the reason why I cried so hard there was because I remember my mom uh, used to stick up for me a lot and tell my dad uh, uh, not to hit me anymore. But the person that molested me was at the gravesite also. See, and nobody knew. Nobody knew all this time till 10 years ago.
Wow.
And
Wow.
nobody knows but my wife. It's the only one who knows who it was. It's the only one I've told, and that's the only one person that needs to know.
Yep.
And so that happened as a child. And then probably when I was about 37, I was 37 years old, and me and my wife already had a 16-year-old daughter.
Mhm.
So, growing up as adoptee, you never had your medical records, none of that stuff. So finally, I was watching a program. I think it was Oprah, one of the talk show, and they was talking about these people looking for their parents. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, they started mentioning non-identity information.
Right.
So I told Tina, I goes, babe, it's time. Time for what? It's time for me to go searching. So I started the search. And the hardest part was going to my parents that raised me to tell them I was going to start searching. Of
Mhm.
course, my mom was upset, and my dad kept saying, Why do you want to go look what's out there? I goes, You're a Serrano. And I go, Dad, I'm not a Serrano.
But I'm not.
Yeah,
Why is it that they can't
it
get
could.
their head around
Well,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess everybody says that. You hear that from all these support groups I belong to. You hear the same story,
Yeah, we all hear the same thing.
same thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got the paperwork, and that's when I started the search. They never even asked me anything about my search. They didn't want to know.
Yep.
They didn't encourage me. They didn't want to know nothing. I went to the county records in Santa Clara County, in San Jose, where I worked for 30 years. It was only like 2 blocks from where I worked.
Oh,
So
wow.
I went up to the seventh. I always remember. I went up to the 7th floor, and I told him, "Hey, I'm here for my non-identity information. I'm a adoptee."
Hmm.
So I had to fill out some paperwork and all that. And it says, "Okay, it'll probably take 6 months for you to get this paperwork." I guess, "Oh man, 6 months." So I go home. I'm a little disappointed, but I went home. So probably about a month after that, month and a half maybe, I went to the mailbox, opened up the mailbox, and looked at. There was a letter there, and it says County of Santa Clara. I looked at it. I go, "Shoot, did I get a ticket, or am I going to be on jury duty
Oh,
or something?" That's what I thought it was.
yeah.
So I opened it up, and it was my non-identity information. So it said your mother was 5'1", 89 pounds. She
Ooh, she
worked
was
at a
teeny.
yeah, she worked at a medical office. She had 2 kids at the time of your birth, and
Mm,
she was living with your grandparents.
okay.
Your father was 5'7", medium built, dark hair, dark eyes, quit high school in 10th grade and went to work full time. And that's it.
That's all.
So I found out I was a one night stand what I was.
Sure.
So I had that information. So I go back to work, and I was on a job site. I used to deliver concrete for 30 years. And I went to a job site, and there was a gentleman named Carlos Bryan. I already knew him for like 20 years already because I was in the company for 30 years. So I knew him for 20 years already, and we were really close. We used to talk about life a lot, right? And he asked, "Hey, Jim, what have you been up to?" I said, "Well, let me tell you the truth." He goes, "Yeah. Well, I'm looking for my biological parents." And he goes, "What?" I goes, "Yeah, I'm looking for my biological parents." And he goes, "Me, Joe? My dad's name was Joe. So you mean Joe's not your dad? Because
Mm,
you worked at the same place, right?"
yeah.
He goes, "No, that's not my dad." He goes, "Oh, shoot. So tell me a little bit about what you found out." So I remember the information I had in my paper, but it was at home already, right?
Right.
So I told him about my biological mother, that she was 5 feet and she worked at a doctor's office, had 2 kids, living with her grandparents and all that. And he looked at me and he goes, "What year were you born, Jim?" I go, 62. Go, 62. Wow. I goes, your description reminds me of a girl I used to go out with in the early 60s. Her name was Marie. He goes, wow. But see, he didn't know that I had the information about my biological father. Carlos is 5'7", dark hair, dark eyes, just what the piece of paper said. And I told him that. And he looked at me and he goes, wow. I heard that Marie, through the rumor mill, was pregnant and she gave up the baby for adoption. He goes, you know where I could find her? He goes, no, I haven't seen her in 38, 39 years. I started searching at 37.
Hmm.
And he goes, and I told him, now let me tell you a little bit about my father, Carlos. The exact description is you. He goes, oh, wow. And he kind of looks like me.
I have full body chills right now.
I know. So I looked at him and he goes, wow, okay. So back then, there was no cell phones. So
Yeah.
I went to the phone booth. I called Tina, my wife. I go, hey, what else does it say on the piece of paper about my biological father? Well, I knew everything but quitting high school in 10th
Yeah.
grade and go work full time.
Yeah.
So I went back to the job site, and Carlos says, hey, what are you doing back here? I goes, I got to ask you a question, Carlos. He goes, yeah. He goes, did you graduate high school? He goes, oh, no, I quit in 10th grade to go.
Mm-mm.
I go, oh, shoot. I told him, that's exactly what that piece of paper says, Carlos. And he looked at me, he goes, wow. And he gave me a hug. He goes, I think you're my son.
Oh my gosh.
So probably about a week after, um, I was in the driver's room, and there was another driver there named Johnny. He goes, hey, Jim. I goes, I heard the story about you and Carlos. I goes, how do you know? He goes, I used to live with your sister, Carlos's daughter, for 5 years. He goes, no way. He goes, I told her the story about you two, and she wants to meet you.
Oh my gosh.
Go, no way. He goes, yeah. So I met her. I took her. I invited her over to my house, and we had her and her son over for the weekend. to get to know them a little bit more. And so then me and Carlos decided to go and do blood tests.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
Yeah, we went to go do the blood test,
Okay.
and then we were already planning Christmases and stuff like that. And usually the blood test usually comes back in like 6, 7 weeks, right?
Hmm.
And at least this one did. And so he was trying to find this Marie girl.
All right. And as always, I love a cliffhanger. So that is the end of the first part of the conversation with Jim Serrano. And the second part will be on the next episode.
I'll be tuning in. I'm going to join that Patreon so I can get it a day early. I'm hooked. I need to know
Atta-girl.
what happens.
Okay, Renee, tell the people about yourself.
Oh, sure. Yes. I am Renee Colvard. I am the person who took 20 minutes to figure out who Matthew McConaughey's mother is. If you would like to see me just flounder through life, you can do that on TikTok at Renee Colvard. Other than that, there's no other else stuff.
Oh, you changed it back to Renee Colvard.
I did. Yeah. I can't. I couldn't bear my
You couldn't stand
self-titled
yourself.
agreeable renegade.
I like agreeable renegade. I think
Okay,
that's so clever.
Thank you.
You got to use it for something. Oh, God. Okay. All right. So I'm Julie Dixon Jackson. You all know that. You can find all things Julie Dixon Jackson at cutoffjeans.com. If you would like to join the Patreon, please feel free. I'm always posting things about it in the group, but you can also go to patreon.com/cutoffjeanspodcast. And with that, have a great week, Renee.
Thank you. You too. And happy birthday again.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Stop it. Oh, hey, the truth is in your jeans.